Assalamu alaikum. Peace be upon you. My name is Meymuna. I'm the founder and executive director of the Tiyya Foundation. I would like to start my bayan off with a personal poem I wrote this week called What Does a Refugee Look Like? What does a refugee look like? Please tell me. Is she covered in dust with sparkling eyes? Is he hunched over with just a few bags? Children playing soccer by the sewage? Families searching for pearls on the roadside? Please tell me. Eager and ready to take photos with white women, brown bodies displayed for the next fundraiser. Thank you, Susan. We appreciate your post on Instagram today. Who are these refugees? Because the ones I know are alchemists practicing the magic of radical forgiveness to have the ability to start over and create from the depths of grieving souls. So I ask you again, what does a refugee look like? If these traumas you cradle do not belong to you, please attend our TED Talks. We are the lifesavers and life coaches leading coffee ceremonies and brewing enchanted tea, singing songs from scriptures that pulled us out the darkness. It's like free yoga, but with nightmares of drones. We know how to quiet the mind. We make things anew. Listen carefully to our suggestions. Allow us to be the faces, not nameless. I'm asking for stages across various platforms where you could learn our recipe to manifest. Please digest this message. That refugee you speak of is my grandparents, whose memories are frozen in time like black and white photographs and zero smiles. That refugee you speak of is my father, my mother, ordering calling cards to connect to overseas. That refugee you speak of is me. So please, spell our names correctly, give us our flowers, and I ask you to re-examine what does a refugee look like. This poem is personal to me because of my experiences. When I use the word alchemy, I think of the definition of turning base metal into gold, turning trauma into joy. I started the Tiyya Foundation with my mom back in 2010 in her kitchen. We're a nonprofit that supports families of refugees, immigrants, and displaced indigenous communities. We started with zero resources, but shared a vision to support families starting anew. Our revenue from shirt sales and backyard gatherings brought in a total of $1,500 for the whole year, so I could apply for our 501c3 status. But by year 2, the work triggered my mom's PTSD and she stepped away. Retelling her accounts of living on a refugee camp for 8 years as an orphan, from age 12 to 20, brought up a lot of unresolved horrors. All she wanted to do was stay in Ethiopia and live with both of her parents. As she stepped away, naturally, my husband and I stepped up to lead the organization because as children of immigrants, we feel indebted to our parents and all that they've sacrificed for us. I wanted to see her vision continue. And I did. For the year 2020, I had the chance to celebrate Tiyya's 10th year with recognition from Congressman Adam Schiff. He awarded me recently as Woman of the Year in his congressional district, Echo Park, but it took me 3 weeks to tell my mom this good news because it still feels unreal. To uplift the voices of refugees, I've been featured by the UNHCR, LA Times, NBC Nightly News, KPFK, and other various media outlets. This fall, on National Philanthropy Day, I will be honored as Outstanding Founder of the Year. I'm also the first girl in my family to obtain a high school diploma and first adult to obtain a master's degree. But despite all of these accomplishments, my greatest one of all was learning how to trust my natural gifts as an alchemist. I have the ability to turn trauma into joy and poetry. I turned $1,500 into a robust community of hundreds of thriving families. Being born on a refugee camp and raised in Orange County, I didn't know that. I actually grew up with a lot of shame. The Quran reminds us in several verses to treat refugees and immigrants, especially women and children seeking asylum, with compassion, respect, and generosity, being full of support. Many prophets in the Quran were refugees themselves, including our beloved Prophet Muhammad, peace be upon him. However, my reality growing up was very different. Many people around me, especially at the mosque I attended, were from wealthy families. I was socialized to believe that talking about my refugee experience or status would not be helpful to navigate these spaces. I was socialized to think that as a Black woman, I shouldn't take up space and be seen or celebrated. I was socialized to believe that I was either an immigrant or Black and not both. So I kept these experiences close to my heart and didn't speak of my family's traumas. I didn't speak of my first job at Carl's Jr. or my side gig cleaning houses to travel. I also didn't tell friends at UC Irvine that I was working at the local gas station. There was also a time in school when I was holding 3 jobs. A coffee shop fired me because I overslept and ran into work late. The exhaustion of survival was physically painful. Yes, I'm the founder of Tiyya, but I know from experience that this work is much bigger than me. It's more than pleasing my parents. I get to learn from true magicians. From nothing, refugees have created so much. If they can't do it, they invest in the next generation. How do we do this work without extending more trauma through the stories we tell about refugees? Should we overlook someone's humanity in order to extend resources and hit fundraising goals? From my lived experiences, I would have loved examples like Aidil Ahmed, a Somalian refugee and author that talks about the power of manifesting. I would have benefited from seeing rap artists like MIA, a refugee from Sri Lanka, on the cover of magazines. I would have thrived knowing that there was a Meymuna out there. I truly support you for supporting our work. I appreciate you for supporting our work. I also invite you to reconsider how you view refugee families starting over in our communities. If you would like tangible ways to support families from Afghanistan and around the globe, please join Tiyya as a resource. You could support with identifying housing, employment, or giving financial resources towards our emergency relief aid. Thank you. And I'd like to close off with one more poem, and it's called Go Ask Your Mom. Hi, can you do me a favor? Can you go home tonight and ask your mother about the boat that saved her from a war? The news mentions how there are these rafts out to sea, dead bodies on the shores, but your mother survived the horrors of Vietnam, Afghanistan, Syria, and more. The media shows me crowded boats. I want to know about the midnight hour. What was her prayer? What happened when the sun wasn't looking and the cameras weren't there? What happened to the memes? I couldn't press like. Did she speak to the moonlight or daydream about her last kiss? Were the stars there to witness her repenting for her sins, knowing she is pregnant, keeping you a secret, not wanting to jinx the possibility of introducing you to your kin? So I ask you, can you do me this favor? Can you go home tonight and ask your mother about the boat that saved her from war? Thank you.
Assalamu alaikum. Peace be upon you all.
Allahu Akbar, Allahu Akbar, Allahu Akbar, Allahu Akbar. أشهد أن لا إله إلا الله أشهد أن لا إله إلا الله أشهد أن محمدا رسول الله أشهد أن محمدا رسول الله حي على الصلاة حي على الصلاة حي على الفلاح حي على الفلاح الله أكبر الله أكبر لا إله إلا الله.
All thanks and praises are to God. We seek God's help and forgiveness. We seek refuge in God from the evil within ourselves and the consequences of our evil deeds. Whoever God guides will never be led astray, and whoever God allows to go astray will never find guidance. I bear witness there is no God but God, alone without any partners, and I bear witness that Muhammad is God's servant and God's final messenger. O you who believe, be mindful of God as is God's due, and make sure you devote yourself to God to your dying moment. Quran chapter 3, verse 102. Assalamu alaikum, everyone. Today, I want to reflect on how we can support one another as a diverse community of American Muslims by sharing my own journey of how I, as a Pakistani American immigrant, learned from the Black and Japanese American experiences to empathize with and stay engaged in solidarity with communities outside of my own, to see all people as my people. My family's American immigration story started when I arrived with them to the US as a 14-year-old girl, just a couple of years before 9/11. During my teen years, a time of inner turmoil and soul searching, I found it cathartic to learn about American civic history and civic culture, and it helped shape my identity as an American Muslim coming of age. Born in Jeddah to Pakistani parents and having spent my childhood in Saudi Arabia, I was fascinated to learn about the different branches of American government and history conferring American voting rights, how they were conferred first to free white males, then later to white women, and then later onwards to Black and Native Americans. It made me very curious about how this civic engagement process is an ongoing process, and multiple communities have gone through it, whether they were forced to take up the helm or whether they decided to ask for their rights, that they were not freely and justly bestowed on them as Americans, whether residents, immigrants, or citizens. In high school, I read the autobiography of Malcolm X as a required reading. I connected with the fact that Malcolm X was going through this inner turmoil, this journey of seeing different facets of American society in its inequality and the dire condition of his community, and his eagerness to change the situation of his people, and his willingness to step up and put his life on the line for the cause of social justice. For me personally, activating myself of social justice is equal parts an American value and an Islamic value. Fighting for social justice, not just for my immediate community, but for the community at large, as commanded in Quran, means to uphold justice and witness for Allah Almighty. Even for people that don't share my ethnicity, have different origin issues, or don't share even the same values or faith. Another nugget of timeless wisdom found in Malcolm X's autobiography is the journey of faith, the metamorphosis that happened through going through his self-reflection journey, which reflected in his shift from Nation of Islam to Al-Islam after his pilgrimage to Mecca. This journey made me more aware of the struggles of African American community and how they have worked hard to pave many steps that immigrant communities, the wider immigrant communities in America have benefited from. I can talk about the influx of Italian immigrants at the beginning of American immigration story, or the waves of persecuted Jews, the diaspora, the Asian diaspora, post-wars. But for me, the African American story from the time of the founding of America and their community organizing for social justice to take back their rights as full human beings, to be treated as equals is something that is truly inspirational and aspirational. And seeing my Black American friends, especially working in the social justice field to this day, whether they're Muslim or Christian, truly inspires me to keep my self compass centered and grounded. And to uphold the value of witnessing and being civically and socially engaged, that this is a value that affects everyone in the American society, whether they're Black, white, brown, recent immigrants, or second or third generation Americans. It was during my undergrad years at USC and my involvement in the Asian Pacific American Student Services while I studied political science, international relations, and peace and conflict studies that led to my deeper understanding of my ethnic roots even more on a deeper level. I learned about the struggles other underrepresented Asian students experienced. During spring break in my junior year, we took a mini trip to Manzanar internment camp in the Owens Valley. It was sort of a little reflective pilgrimage to a site where the American government had set up internment camps post Pearl Harbor attack for Japanese Americans to be confined in. Going to this barren, isolated valley surrounded by tall mountains transported me and made me step into another community's shoes and their reality, past history, and future dreams. Even though it was an isolated place in the middle of nowhere in its ruined state, it had a profound effect on me. To be there and to reflect in it on the story of the internees and to stay there for 2 nights was like taking a time capsule back to a place where a great injustice took place. And this was in 2006, 5 years after 9/11. And being a Muslim in that era, being someone who was under the radar, under surveillance, trying to still find my identity, I really appreciated this opportunity through the USC's Asian Pacific American Student Service Center because it parlayed the political and social realities that had happened before and how it connected with the wider society of students and community in that particular time. There were many people fearing if this scenario could happen again to the Muslim community, as some political commentators would hint on this at times. And this fear was reflected by my Japanese, Indian, Chinese, Caucasian American peers who took this journey with me to the Manzanar camps. I was the only Muslim there, accompanied by Hindu, Christian, agnostic, and Buddhist peers from USC. And to understand how we understood the meaning of what happened in the political past of the US history was beautiful, to say the least, but also it showed how when we come together and understand the story and weave the story together with our own threads, it makes a beautiful tapestry with the reality of our shared struggles and also what we want to create in the present and for our future generations. Because of these two experiences I had as a younger woman, now when I see someone struggling with different issues, whether they need a translator for legal services or help with documenting their stories of marginalization by the dominant system, which may be different or even opposing to my own values or beliefs, I'm willing to listen, hold space, honor their truth, to let them step into the light and live their truth, and show support in whatever capacity I can. Sometimes it's as simple as sharing information about where to get social support, legal help, mediation support, or providing translation or meditation or mediation service. It's also about continuing to learn, to grow the knowledge base as a responsibility to understand the legal system that is always changing. And it's always up for interpretation, like our Supreme Court Justice has shown recently. Today, I encourage everyone to find their own heritage story, connect it to the wider American and global narrative, and see what resonates. See how you can use the shared commonalities to really engage with the people around you. with their histories, present, and future dreams. So you can also step into your power, step in with the resources, and step into creating a better future for all Americans. I say what I have said. May God forgive all of us. Alhamdulillah, all praises and thanks are due to God alone. In an increasingly polarized world, it can sometimes feel the easy way out is to remain neutral, to remain outside of the debate in order to stay safe and guarded in a dangerous world. After all, if one is personally not attacked or oppressed, why risk anything or everything for those who are being attacked? This kind of mentality of fending off world issues in order to keep ourselves safe and secure only harm us more in the end because we are all connected. And as for our spiritual growth in this world and the next, it's vital that we keep learning and engaging with multiple narratives of what the past, present, and future of civic engagement will look like. Thank you so much. I leave you with some of my favorite verses of the Quran. O you who have believed, be persistently standing firm in justice, witnesses for Allah, even if it's against yourself or parents and relatives. Whether one is rich or poor, Allah is more worthy of both. Quran chapter 4, verse 135. God commands justice, doing good, and generosity towards relatives, and God forbids what is shameful, blameworthy, and oppressive. God teaches you so that you may take heed. Quran chapter 16, verse 90. Recite what has been revealed to you by the book of the book and stay consistent in prayer. Indeed, prayer restrains the human from lewd and wicked behavior, but the remembrance of God is even greater, and God knows everything you are doing. Chapter 29, verse 44. Welcome, Salat. Let's perform the prayer.
Allahu Akbar, Allahu Akbar. أشهد أن لا إله إلا الله. أشهد أن محمدا رسول الله. حي على الصلاة. حي على الفلاح. قد قامت الصلاة. قد قامت الصلاة. الله أكبر. الله أكبر.